cooking فتة عيد الأضحى. Eid Al Adha Fattah. Fattah. Start by cutting the bread into small pieces. This is Lebanese bread, and we're cutting it first into strips. And then you take the strip and you cut it into squares. And after, we're going to put that in the oven. This is what the bread needs to look like. Then add fresh lamb fillets from the butchers. Then saute the lamb fillets. Making the stock for the fattah. Then leave the lamb to saute in the stock for 10 to 15 minutes. Then remove it, half cooked. The meat is now out of the water, because if you leave it anymore, it kind of dries out. So we want to fry that later. And so is the bread. That's 2 of the ingredients. Next, you cook the medium grain rice in butter. Next step is cooking the rice, medium grain rice. First, we start with the butter and a bit of oil, because this rice needs to be very buttery. It's a medium grain rice. This is what it looks like after it's washed. It's a medium grain used in a variety of Egyptian dishes. The meat stock, where we were boiling the meat, is all done. As you can see, it's simmering. I will use that on the rice. So the rice is not only buttery, it also can have taste of meat stock. Now I'm pouring the soup from the stock. I have 4 cups of rice, so I need 4 cups of stock. It's best to use a measuring cup because it tells you the exact amounts. Then you start frying the lamb. Fry the meat. The lamb fillets, this is what I used. You can use, of course, any type of meat you like. So you can use beef if that's what your preference is, or lamb. It's usually best to use the part of the meat that has more fat. But because I don't really like fatty meat and prefer to eat lean meat, so I've used lamb fillets, because lamb in itself is actually quite fatty. And so I've used the fillet of the lamb, and I'm gonna now fry the pieces to add to the fattah. Obviously this is a non-stick pan, and as you can see, the meat is like still very raw or rare. And I'm going to fry it and add seasoning, because that is actually the top layer of the Egyptian style fattah. Garlic. There's a bit of black pepper, cayenne pepper, and salt. And this is about as brown as you need it. And this is what the lamb should look like after it's fried. Next, you fry the garlic for the base of the sauce. Last but not least, we're doing the tomato sauce that goes over the fattah. That is also a key ingredient for this special Egyptian dish. I'm frying a lot of garlic, minced garlic, in non-stick pan. Frying this time with oil. And obviously we can't burn the garlic, because it will bring a sour taste if it's burned to the sauce. It's a tomato-based sauce, but we're also gonna add some of the stock from the lamb we did in the beginning. I'm adding Valverde. Oh, here it is. The smooth passata cooking sauce, but you can also do your own tomato sauce. I like this because it's smooth and it's actually pure tomato. It's not the tomato paste that you get in the small jars. You can hear it sizzling, so we're going to mix it together. And then bring our stock in. So I've added 2 cups of stock to make it lighter, as you can see here. And then I'm going to mix them, and I've also added some vinegar. So it's basically a very light texture. It's more watery, but that's the whole point, because we're going to add it to the feta, different style feta in the end. Next is assembling the feta. So it's many layers. Now to start assembling the Egyptian feta. Feta, not feta cheese, it's feta. We have the meat, we have the bread, the rice, medium grain rice cooked in stock, and the tomato sauce with stock, and that's, as you can see, it's light. That's an important part of the feta, and I will be assembling it in this plate. First, you put all the fried bread as the base on the plate. It's dry, but that's not a problem, because we're going to be adding the tomato stock towards the end. And then you add the rice over the bread. As you can see, the rice is medium grain. It's a bit yellowish. That's because of the butter and the stock that it was cooked in. And this is the medium grain rice. And it's not the Italian rice that they do, the Arboria rice. It's actually called medium grain. It's an Australian medium grain rice. And in Egypt, we use that grain a lot for a lot of the Egyptian dishes. Next is the soup. You are going to put a generous amount, because it needs to reach all the way to the bread and soak the bread at the bottom of the plate. This is called feta sauce, أو شوربة الفتة. I do like mine a bit more with a bit more tomato sauce, but some people opt to have it with less tomato sauce. And then the last thing is you will add the meat on the top. So I am putting it next to each other, grabbing a bit of sauce in the process with it. This one is upside down. So trying to add them so it looks pretty as can be. This is quite a rustic dish, so the idea isn't prettiness as much as it is taste. A very traditional dish, usually cooked in Eid Al Adha, because it constitutes a type of meat as a way of celebration. So basically the meat goes on the top. As you can see here, I put all the pieces of meat, and I can actually get a bit of the sauce and frying the meat if I want and add it on. But I will prefer to add a bit more of the red sauce of the feta. So This is the last layer. So the meat will have a bit of the sauce on it. And that is how you assemble this fabulous Egyptian dish. Happy Eid!